Hello, everybody. Aiden here, and welcome into today's episode of Around the Slice. So, we're doing another check in, as I said I would, every couple of days for the next week or two, whenever the bulk of free agency ends, if you would, because there are a few new Buffalo Bills free agency items and talking points that I'd like to give my thoughts on. Before we jump into things specifically, for a frame of reference this chaotic / fast moving time of year, it is 10 o'clock a.m. on Thursday, March 12th. Please keep that in mind. Anything from this point forward, I will be covering in the next episode in 2 or 3 days going forward as well. So let's get into it as of, again, time of this recording, 10 o'clock a.m. on Thursday, March 12th. At the moment, I'm just going to go in sequential order of how these events went. The order of these events went down. First, tight end Dawson Knox has signed a contract extension. Obviously, his cap hit ballooned. It was way too much for technically a backup tight end to Dalton Kincaid. There were two options: either release him or extend him to kind of mask it, if you would, per se, and lower his cap hit for this year, the 2026 season going forward. I, for one, advocated for a release, and predictably, that's what I absolutely thought would happen. But the Buffalo Bills disagree. It's a 3-year deal. Obviously, interestingly enough, reportedly, we don't have numbers yet. I assume it will come in at 7 or 8 million. It can't be double digits because at that point, what's the point? But without money, I'm not the biggest fan of this, especially since 3 years. 1 or 2 year, fine. But 3 years, committing that to a long-term backup tight end, it kind of doesn't jibe with me, if you will. You already have Kincaid, who's a true flex tight end. You already have Jackson Hawes, who's a kick-ass blocker. And Knox is a bit of a mix of both of them. He's a good enough blocker, as well as he is a good enough receiver. But at this point in his career, he's still technically a backup tight end. And maybe this is just a fantasy football analyst, Aiden Weingartner, talking in me here. But I hate how much he cuts Kincaid's snap share in half. Injury or not, I want Kincaid to play more. Jackson Hawes will always get his with the kick-ass blocking mentality. Is truly already one of the best blocking tight ends in the entire league, entire NFL as a whole, specifically mainly. So kick-ass there. Not worried about that. But committing 3 years to technically a backup tight end, he's going to continue to suppress Kincaid's value. And Kincaid was drafted a few years ago to be in the first round of B. That two flex tight ends role with Dawson Knox, the 12 personnel. That couldn't have gone any worse to this point. So, again, not knowing the money, I can't imagine it's more than 7, 8 per year. A 3-year extension, just lengthwise, is a huge commitment for a player when you already, especially considering you're picking up, it's confirmed that you're picking up Kincaid's 5th-year option by the May 2nd deadline. So, anyway, this one's a formality. Every single year for the past 3 or 4 years, year in and year out, we knew this was coming, but now it's official. The Buffalo Bills at this point in time have officially restructured franchise QB Josh Allen's contract. Let me get this financials out of the way. It creates $12 million in 2026 cap space, which they moved pretty quickly just mere hours later, which we're going to get to in a minute, utilizing that cap space. But this is obvious. I've explained this before. Restructure should only be reserved for players that you have no issues with committing to for the future. Yes, it clears cap space now, but you have to pay cap space down the road, even if / when they're not on the team. So people suggested, for example, Deion Dawkins should be restructured. I have legit concerns about his future outlook for the team. He's coming off one of his worst years in the league by far. Unfortunately, was top 3 in penalties in terms of yardage, penalized for in terms of false starts and holding penalties as a whole. Specifically, excuse me. So this Josh Allen was obvious. People suggested Deion Dawkins. I'm not a fan of that because, again, it should only be reserved for players you have no problem to committing for even longer in the future, which, no crap. Josh Allen, franchise QB. Next, this one kind of flew under the radar. No one really talked about it unless you're like a diehard Bills fan like me and our podcaster like I am. The Buffalo Bills have officially placed the restricted free agent tender on a restricted free agent offensive tackle, Ryan Vandermark. There's a lot of moving parts here. Let me start right off the bat with the financials. It's a 1 year, $3.5 million, basically a stopgap deal. It prevents him becoming an unrestricted free agent, and they have the quote unquote right to refusal. What does that mean, you may ask? Well, I'd love to break it down for you. Bills have the right to match any other offer. So if he signs an offer sheet, let's throw out just any team that needs offensive line help, starter, reserve, whatever. If he signs, let's say, a 1 year, $4 million, 1 year, $4.5 million deal, the Bills have a few days, 72 hours, I believe it is, to match that up until April 17th. At April 17th, Ryan Vandermark can only negotiate with the Bills, re-signing or not. Now, the Bills and the players can still the Bills and the player, Ryan Vandermark in this case, can still negotiate a new deal. They can sign him to 2 years, 8, let's say, 4 per. They can sign him to longer than the 1 year, $3.5 million. And it should be noted, interestingly enough, that the Buffalo Bills and Brandon Beane can withdraw the tender at any point if they bring in other free agents. If $3.5 million for 1 year is just too much, and then he would become an unrestricted free agent and then go into the pool maybe to get some other offers from other teams. Again, a lot of moving parts. I'm really glad we're keeping our depth intact. We have Tyler Grable, we have Ryan Vandermark, we have Alec Anderson going to be fighting for the left guard spot. I have my concerns with Cedric Van Granger, but he's still in the pipeline, if you would. And Chase Lunt, practice squad caliber player, most likely, but yeah. Okay, so I mentioned at the top, let's stop beating around the bush, not to bury the lead here. I mentioned that we created $12 million in cap space from the obvious as hell Josh Allen restructure. Defensive end Bradley Chubb has been signed. Now, as of right now, at this point in time. Now, a few weeks ago, I shared in this podcast that when the Miami Dolphins initially reportedly cut Bradley Chubb with the post-June 1st designation, I was not a fan of this, considering the injury history, considering that he'll be 30. Yes, he's a very good twitchy pass rusher when he's healthy, but he's had a lengthy injury history. And if the Miami Dolphins, out of all people who need edge rush help very, very, very badly under new head coach Jeff Hafley, are releasing you, there must be something in the water there, if you would. So let's get to the financials. Right off the top, 3 years, $43.5 million, which pays him for base value of $14.5 million per year. Again, $29 million guaranteed. So that's a significant investment. They have him around for a while. It can get up to a max value of $52.5 million max value with incentives. Again, the base value is what I just mentioned, $52.5 million max though. Now, past that, we have some discussion points that I want to get to with Bradley Chubb. Age-wise, he turns 30 in June, basically a year or two younger than what we just did with Joey Bosa. He's played 90 NFL games out of possible however many in his 8-year career because he's had a lot of injuries. But when healthy, 90 games, 48 sacks, 53 tackles for loss, 15 forced fumbles. So he has great sack production, but the injuries are a huge, monstrous concern. Let me take you through the history here because you're going to get squeamish here. He tore his ACL in 2019, missed 12 games that year with the Denver Broncos. He battled severe ankle injuries in 2020 and 2021, respectively. He missed 11 games between both those years as a whole, again with the Denver Broncos. And then he was traded to the Miami Dolphins at the trade deadline in 2022, I believe, for first round pick, which is wild to think about. But unfortunately, then he tore his ACL in December of 2023 and missed all of 2024. Technically, the Dolphins opened his practice window with Mike McDaniel towards the end of that season/year, if you would. 3-week practice window, but it never came to fruition, and he had a setback. So, again, squeamishly concerning injury history. But in 2025, huge bounce-back year last year with the Dolphins. Much better than guys like Chop Robinson, and then Jalen Phillips traded to the Philadelphia Eagles, Carolina Panthers, at the trade deadline. Chubb was firstly healthy last year in 2025, had 8.5 sacks and 48 pressures. Greg Rousseau's career high is 6 sacks. No, wait. Greg Rousseau's career high is 8 sacks, I do believe, if fact check me in the comments below. I apologize, but it's not true. But I do believe, to my knowledge, Greg Rousseau's career sacks high, however you want to phrase that, is 8. So talent level, this is great. The Bills needed a pass rusher to fit the bill in Jim Leonard's more aggressive attack style, blitz heavy, man heavy defense. Bradley Chubb is 265 pounds, but he's way more athletic and plays way faster than that bigger size would suggest. You want speed and bend? Well, crap, guys, you got it here. So talent level, I love it, but we just can't ignore the severe injury history. 2 torn ACLs, and basically from December of 2023 to missing the whole 2024 season. He missed 18 months of football before he even ramped up for training camp in week 1 that year, last year. So that's quite the concern. A year and a half, damn near 18 months, right around there, of football for that stretch. That's concerning. We just can't move past that. But I gave you all the details. I give you all the details there. You might argue that Aiden, well, this is just a Joey Bosa. 1, he's a year or 2 younger than Joey Bosa, and 2, Joey Bosa declined significantly as the season went on last year, not due to injury, just the wear and tear. I think the Bills were forced to play him more than they wanted to. Bosa, that is, forced to play Bosa more than they wanted to, because Epinesa was disappointing. Landon Jackson couldn't even get a goddamn game day jersey, and then suffered a season-ending severe MCL sprain, I believe it was. And just Javon Settleman was a nothing burger. So I feel like it would behoove the Bills, Brandon Beane, Joe Brady, new DC Jim Leonard, whoever the hell, Bradley Chubb, to play a rotational style of snaps. In the past, he's been a full-time starter, injury aside, outside of the injury-ridden seasons. He's played damn near 700 to 800 snaps per year. I think he should live in the 450 to 500 range at this point in his career to preserve his health, to preserve his durability. And I like the way this is going. We're not going to re-sign Joey Bosa. We're not going to re-sign AJ Epinesa. But it would behoove them to get a rotation. Greg Rousseau is always going to play 70 to 75% of snaps per week. We know Sean McDermott annoyingly at times used that rotation. Jim Leonard, it sounds like he's going to let his dogs eat, if you would, by leaving them on the field. Greg Rousseau's his own thing. But on the other side, I think a mix of Bradley Chubb in a high, potentially first-round pick in an investment like a guy like TJ Parker from Clemson or Cassius Howell from Texas A&M drops because of the short, stubby T-Rex arm style stuff, if you would, from the combine concerning metrics side. Rather. So, yeah, I really like not having Bradley Chubb as a full-time player. Again, let's live in the 450 to pushing 500, 550 at the most snap range on a yearly basis. But this is not, so the commitment length might be eye-popping. 3 years for an injury-riddled player. Oh my God. I'm pretty sure the guarantees only go after year 2. After year 3, I'm pretty sure there's no guaranteed money. 29 guaranteed again in the first 2 years. So I'd give this an A+ if it's just talent level. But considering the injury history, considering the kind of severe injury history, I'm going to give this a very solid B. I don't know why so many people are down on it. So many people are down on the DJ Moore trade. So many people are down on the Bradley Chubb trade. Again, or signing, rather. Sorry. Excuse me about that. What the hell do you expect Brandon Beane to do? He has to go bargain bin hunting because they're always strapped for cap space. He has to go bargain bin hunting because the Bills have by far their most needs they've had in the last 4 or 5 years at this iteration of the team with Joe Brady now and Jim Leonard now and all that company over there and staff. So, yeah, I'm going to give the Bradley Chubb signing a B, and my main point is I think it would behoove all parties, if you would. Behoove all parties, if you would, for him to be in rotation opposite Rousseau with a first-round pick like TJ Parker or Cassius Howell, or maybe you get aggressive and trade up for a worthwhile investment. I'm still not opposed to signing another free agent like a Jawan Jennings. I think we're really looking at Jawan Jennings at this point, and that's about it. Been pretty picked over, but these receivers are getting paid up there. Anyways, quick AFC East roundup I'll do at the end of these check-ins. The Jets, I've been kind of mixed on their situation, like good and bad, right? Like the bad, they act like they're going to be competitive this year. They traded for Geno Smith. What does that really do for you? They signed guys like Demario Davis and David Onyemata, who individually, I like those players a lot. Big targets for the Bills, actually, talked about last week. But together for the Jets, that makes 0 sense. But on the good, I really like the value they got for Nashawn Wright, 1 year, $5.5 million. I thought someone was going to severely overpay in the double digits, 10, 11, 12 million even, because of the insane interception numbers from last year. But he has bad coverage abilities outside of ball skills. So yeah, a couple positions that the Bills need to like pounce on immediately. You're looking at linebacker. The top ones like Quay Walker, Nakobe Dean have been picked over, unfortunately. But we're looking at, if you want a legacy 1 year stopgap Hall of Famer type, and Bobby Wagner. If you want a reclamation project 1 year bounce back, who was famously a teammate with Josh Allen at Wyoming for a couple of years, you go with Logan Wilson. If you want a veteran that was just veterans that were just caught, Bobby Okereke and then Dre Greenlaw. Yeah, but safety, it's been even more so picked over because we're just looking at Jaquan Brisker, talking about the Miami. You better jump on that ASAP. Talking about the Miami Dolphins, they haven't done anything outside of signing Malik Willis. I love the value they got on that contract, but that was expected because a few weeks ago in his introductory press conference, new GM John Eric Sullivan, who comes from the Packers tree in the way of team building, he alluded to the fact that we're going to build through the draft. We're not going to go nearly splash heavy in free agency like you all want us to. Basically allude to the fact that we're going to build through the draft and build this thing from the ground up through the draft. And then for the Patriots, we already talked about Elijah Vera Tucker the other day. I hate how much I love the signing of Romeo Doubs for them. Yeah, 4 years, 80 million, 20 per. Maybe you think that's too much, but I hate how much I love it. Romeo Doubs finally got away from that dreaded Green Bay wide receiver rotation. He's not the most athletic and speediest guy in the world, but he was a mouth-watering target for the Bills because his separation and contested catch metrics are off the charts. And for such a big guy, he's a very underrated route runner, I feel, as well. I think he's in line for, it might be bullish, but 100 to 110 targets for fantasy purposes and just target purposes as a whole in New England. Okay, guys, I gave you a few thoughts on a few new Bills items here today. Again, frame of reference at the time of this recording, when I started at 10 o'clock a.m. on Thursday, March 12th, just to pinpoint an exact time at this chaotic, very fast-paced time of year. Speaking of this chaotic, fast-paced time of year, for the next week or two going forward, I'm going to be checking in every couple days to give you guys my analysis on a few Bills newsy items. Again, recap, Bradley Chubb, injuries concern me, but talent level, when healthy, I'd love it, but the injuries are a big caveat, so I'm going to give it a very solid B, slightly above middle of the road, B grade. And then Brandon Beane, I think he's done some really underrated value things in free agency. He used a tender on Ryan Vandermark. He's restructured Josh Allen, which no crap. And then he brought in a very valuable starting young enough still slot corner that's, in my opinion, a younger, cheaper, more athletic and speedy version of Taron Johnson. So I'm going to give Brandon Beane a B. You want more splash moves. We need to fill linebacker and safety still. Jaquan Brisker, wink, wink, jump in the ASAP, Brandon Beane. But I'm going to give a B for 2026 NFL Free Agency as of 10 o'clock a.m. on Thursday, March 12th. Please follow me on Twitter /X at AWinegunner13. We're reacting immediately to Bills, NFL, AFC East, Jets, Dolphins, Patriots, Chiefs, biggest rivals, whatever the hell you want. We're reacting there. Again, at AWinegunner13 on Twitter /X. You can watch our listeners' podcast on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts on your preferred podcast app /platform of choice. Speaking of YouTube, if you're watching there, one, I appreciate the support, but two, like and subscribe to the channel for all this fun stuff on a near daily basis at this point, couple days at the very least. Please let me know down in the comments below. What do you think of Bradley Chubb signing mainly, but what do you think of the couple more underrated moves, Ryan Vandermark, Josh Allen, etc., that we covered? My thoughts here today. Lastly, please share this video episode and YouTube channel with anyone and everyone you know. Thank you for the support as always. This is a great time of the year. Team building is what I live for. See you guys in the next one. Enjoy the rest of free agency. Still a lot to be going on here. Goodbye.